Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's on the road to 100 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love reactions, sports news, sports betting, anything at all in the sports world, it's all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. And I promise you it will be well worth it. Let's get into today's video, which is Why Not Wednesday. Once again, thank you guys so much for DMing me your questions, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, whatever. You guys make this possible every week, and I love answering your guys' questions. So let's get into the first question today, which is, after watching my Raiders beat your Patriots, yes, I didn't even realize I decided to put on my Patriots sweater as of reading this question, but after watching my Raiders beat your Patriots on Sunday, why is no one picking the Raiders to make the playoffs? They have a sharp offense and a good defense coached by Pete Carroll. Would love to hear your thoughts. Well, I think the reason why a lot of people don't pick the Raiders to even make the playoffs is because they're in a division with the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Broncos right now. And all three of those teams feel like more of a playoff lock than the Raiders do. I mean, the Raiders, the last few years, I mean, for a long time, they've had their outliers with Derek Carr, and you can go back a while ago, but for a majority, though, the Raiders have been pretty awful, to be honest with you, especially the last few years. Even though I know it's a different team, you mentioned, their offense, they have weapons everywhere. Brock Bowers, even though he got injured towards the end of that Patriots game, I haven't checked the injury report on him yet, but I'm assuming he's fine. I'm 100% I would have heard something if it was something he'd be out for. So I'm sure he's okay. Gino, give Gino the time in the pocket. He has a rocket of an arm, and the resurgence he's had in his career is crazy. It hasn't gotten overshadowed, but it kind of has with Baker and Darnold the last few years. People kind of went off of the Geno Smith hype train. And I mean, the resurgence he's had is pretty incredible, to be honest with you. He was the first one to do it out of Baker and Darnold. And people now think Daniel Jones is now on track to do that. I don't necessarily think so. I think the Colts are going to fall back down to earth. I think that win was more or less how bad the Dolphins were than how good the Colts really were in that game. Colts played a really good game, but I think they're going to fall back to earth, especially when they play better opponents. I think their flaws are really going to come out and shine against better opponents. But the Raiders, like I said, it's more or less their division. Like, they have the players. I think in order for them to really make more of a playoff push, as much as I love Geno, I don't necessarily love Geno, as much as I like Geno, I don't necessarily think he's a playoff caliber quarterback. He made the playoffs a few years ago with Seattle. They had a positive record, but they just missed the playoffs last year. I just don't think Geno Smith is a playoff caliber quarterback. Like, I think he's a good quarterback, but there's moments, and people mentioned it before, where you look at Geno and he has a string of good games, but then he falls down to earth and Geno looks kind of back to looking like Geno Smith of before. No, he's not quite that bad, but he really starts not looking as good anymore. And that's where the Raiders, they're kind of high on that one game. He played really good against the Patriots on Sunday, but he's going to have a string of games where he's back down to earth and below that. I mean, because I watch a lot of Seahawks games. Like I said, I watch every game of the NFL season. And Geno, there's a reason they finished 9-8, 10-7 is because half the season he's great and half the season he's like below average. So the Raiders are going to start seeing that slow of games, and that's when they're going to finish around 6 or 7 wins. And that's why I have them finishing around. I think they could finish 8-9. I mean, the Raiders are going to be a competitive football team. This isn't going to be a team who finishes with 5 or 6 wins and is barely getting by. Now, this is going to be a competitive football team. Their division is very difficult. Like, if this team was in the AFC South with Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and Houston, I'd probably have them winning that division or competing to win the division. I don't have them competing to win the AFC West at all. I have them finishing last. They're not better than LA. They're not better than Kansas City, and they're not better than Denver. But they still have a good football team. Their division is just literally stacked. So, and I like Crosby, but I think their secondary is really going to come out in the next few weeks. Their secondary is going to start getting torched, I think. And that's the thing with the Patriots offense. They don't have the best receiving crew in the world. I think the receiving crew is just very average. Stephon Diggs, we'll see whether or not he kind of shows any magic again or any signs of life of what he was. I'm not going to take one game off an ACL injury saying that, he's completely lost because we don't know. He looked just very average in that game against the Raiders, but I think against teams like the Chargers, the Ravens, the Bengals, like if they go against any team with a decent receiving crew, they're going to get torched alive, to be honest with you. They have a good pass rush, but their secondary is not great. So I think a lot of people overreact to week 1 victories, and I've seen a lot of people saying that the Raiders, I think, legitimately are going to be in the playoffs. I don't think it's week 1 against a Patriots roster who over 50, I think it was over 50% of the roster was new to the team or just starting for the Patriots. So a completely overall roster, and they only won the game by 7 points. I mean, the Raiders had a stretch there where they were just kind of out of it, to be honest with you. But I mean, they look sharp. When's a win? I don't care if you win by 1 or 70 points. It's the same result in the win column, no matter what. But I love Pete Carroll. But one thing I do remember about Pete Carroll in Seattle is he was coaching a very outdated, he had a very outdated scheme. And that's the thing with older coaches is what we're seeing is their schemes, they're very stubborn in their schemes. We're going to see what the Raiders look like 9 weeks from now. They start playing like how Pete was coaching in Seattle his last few years. It's going to look tough there in Las Vegas, and they're not going to be so much on the hype train anymore. So, again, Las Vegas going to be an extremely competitive team. I think they could finish with 8 wins. I have them finishing 7-10 or 8-9, which is extremely competitive for a team who was just picking number 6 overall. Again, just leaps and steps, or just little steps at a time. I think next year they could be a playoff team. So, yeah, the Raiders, extremely competitive, not quite at the playoff level yet for me. Next question. Have you seen all the stuff going on with Kawhi Leonard recently? It's crazy how much is going on with him now. Will this ruin his legacy? Sorry. I got only other questions and threw me off. If you haven't seen the Kawhi Leonard stuff recently, it is pretty crazy. There's some insider reports, especially from him in his days in Toronto as well, where it makes it seem like, okay, Kawhi Leonard is like, they always say look out for the quiet ones, and Kawhi Leonard is kind of an example of that, to be honest with you. He's definitely been in some shady stuff. We're starting to see that. If you haven't heard, this is a sports investigator, Pablo Torre, drops a bombshell report. Kawhi Leonard reportedly signed a $28 million endorsement with a fraudulent tree planting company funded by the Clippers owner Steve Ballmer to get around the salary cap rules. So that's apparently under investigation right now. So, innocent until proven guilty with stuff like that. But if that turns out to be true, man, the Clippers have some massive punishment heading their way. Supposedly, the Clippers essentially handed Kawhi money under the table to join them and have been paying him annually since. They're subject to losing multiple picks if these allegations hold up to be true. It's going to be a really hefty punishment. The funny thing is with the Clippers is they have no picks anyway. So on top of that, they're probably going to lose. I don't even know the next time they have a first round pick. I don't think they have a first round pick for a while. They really don't have any picks. That's the thing with them is now on top of that, they're going to end up losing even more picks and maybe even some suspensions. Maybe Kawhi Leonard gets suspended. We don't know. I mean, it's going to be hefty. We know the Clippers have been extremely disappointing since, they had the Paul George and the Kawhi Leonard duo, which did not work. I mean, Paul George is now going into his second year in Philadelphia. You had Pandemic P back in 2020, where he looked like one of the worst players in the NBA. Absolutely terrible. But then he obviously came back and he was playing pretty great for the Clippers. But then Kawhi Leonard just literally, people were wondering if Kawhi Leonard should retire because he just wasn't playing. Then Kawhi Leonard came back this year, and that was the first time we've seen him in a while. And he looked good again. He's coming back into form. But with all those injuries, he's extremely injury prone. Apparently, it's a serious knee problem too. He had some massive swelling in his leg and his knee, and they were wondering if they could ever even get it down from the play again. Apparently, it's extremely painful. So some of his tendons were deteriorating in his leg. So it was a serious question mark whether Kawhi Leonard would ever play basketball again last year. He came back, he played great. But the one thing is with those injuries, Kawhi Leonard's always been an injury-prone player. Always, his entire career. And for the few years he stayed healthy for a majority of the season, his teams have made deep playoff pushes. And, I mean, they've been incredible. Toronto is an example. But now the older he's getting, the more these injuries pile up, the longer he's going to be out and the less effective he's going to be on the court. I mean, he's not 28 years old anymore and can just come back from an injury and look like a defensive player of the year and take his team on a deep playoff run. He's not going to be able to do that anymore. I mean, he's in his kind of going into his mid-30s. I mean, Kawhi, or I think he is in his mid-30s now. I mean, Kawhi is definitely, I think we're seeing some of the last years of him, especially now with this stuff looming around them in the Clippers organization. They're going to wonder how much they want anything to do with that, especially if he sustains another major injury. Kawhi Leonard's going to retire. If he goes and tears an ACL, something happens in his knee, he's out of season, Kawhi Leonard's is going to retire, especially with all this stuff. Because now, 3 days ago, it was reported voiding Kawhi Leonard's contract with the Clippers is now on the table. If they can prove that Kawhi was incentivized to not only stay, but to sign a team-friendly deal that gives them more flexibility, yeah, they might void Kawhi Leonard's contract, especially in 2019 as well. This is just extremely greedy. If LeBron James were to do this, I can only imagine what the media would say. Kawhi Leonard's camp demands to the Toronto Raptors in 2019 free agency. A trade for Paul George. He wanted Paul. He always, the plan was to play with Paul George for Kawhi Leonard, but he wanted him to come to Toronto if he were to stay in Toronto. An extra $10 million in sponsorship income, bluntly stating, we don't want to do anything. Partial ownership of the Toronto Maple Leafs and ownership stakes in other companies affiliated with the MLSE. So Kawhi Leonard is a pretty greedy dude. And the last report is he didn't want to sign with the Lakers in 2019, which we thought he might have. We thought wherever Kawhi Leonard goes, it's going to be a super team somewhere. And it turned out to be so. He wanted that to be with the Clippers, and it didn't really turn out to be. He didn't want to play with LeBron James. That's flat. He just didn't want to play with LeBron at all. So, man, that's tough. I mean, Kawhi Leonard is starting to kind of now show his true character. This comes out to all be true with the Clipper stuff. The Clippers are going to suffer. I mean, they're going to lose their picks. They're going to lose their best player, arguably. James Harden ain't going to want to be there. James Harden wants a championship. Kawhi Leonard doesn't play. I mean, that team has an extremely good roster this year. They're all aging. That's the thing. So this team, the championship window is like a year max, a year or two max. Like literally, these guys are all aging. We don't know how long they had, in some of their best years. They're already kind of fading out of their best years. Then James Harden's still playing like an all-NBA player, but how much longer does he really have? He doesn't play like Houston James Harden anymore, but he's still an amazing player. Kawhi Leonard's not quite Toronto Raptors Kawhi Leonard. He can't stay healthy, and he's getting older now. But they're all still very high-level players, nonetheless. I mean, those were those guys at the peak of their powers in the prime of their life, and they're just not quite as good as they were then, but they're just a tad below. So those guys are still playing good enough to win a championship, and it could all be thrown out of the window with this. And we don't know what's going to happen to the Clippers organization. They could lose some serious credibility. Then you go on to buy and build a new stadium, and this is all now coming on you. So then it's tough. It's tough for the Clippers. And Kawhi Leonard, I think it could absolutely ruin his legacy. What if he goes out and gets hurt again? Now with all this stuff coming out about, how he treated Toronto and everything, and now what he's doing with the Clippers and everything, if this is true, I think it could absolutely haunt his legacy a little bit. So Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff going on with Kawhi Leonard. Obviously, not a lot of major stories breaking out with it yet because it's still under investigation. But this could turn out to be really bad for the Clippers and Kawhi soon. So, next question. Next question here. It says, "I have a question. I haven't seen anyone. I have a question. I haven't seen anyone ask on their podcast yet. How do you think Tom Brady is in the announcing booth? I can't stand listening to him. And yes, even I'm a Patriots fan as well. No hate towards his playing career either. I guess you mean like no hate towards his playing career either, as in like no like bias rotating him in the booth. Yeah, that is definitely what you mean. So, yeah, it's funny because I was talking to my dad and some of my friends not that long ago about Tom Brady in the booth, and he really sucks in the announcing booth. To be honest with you, he's gotten better in terms of his wordage. If you remember last year, a lot of the memes that were going around with him was he liked using the word chunk, like chunk plays, chunk this time, and everyone was like kind of making fun of him for it. And he just wasn't good. His wording was very bad. He's worked on that, and he sounds a lot more fluent in the booth. Like he sounds like an announcer in the booth. But one thing I've said about Tom Brady in the booth is I just don't think he has the voice for it. He's extremely monotone. He's not exciting to hear in the booth. I always said I think Tom Brady would be better as like a head coach. He should go and try being like an offensive coordinator or head coach. I know he has that role with the Raiders right now, GM role. But Tom Brady would be I feel like him as a head coach would be so fun to watch. He has that energy as a football head coaching guy. But in terms of having the voice for announcing, he's extremely monotone. He just does not sound good on the mic. He does not sound good at all. Like I said, his wording has gotten better. He sounds more like an announcer in terms of his wording, if that makes sense. The way he says stuff, but how he sounds is not good. Like Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, I'm going to use that as an example. Joe Buck has one of the best announcers' voices we've ever heard. Like Joe Buck sounds like a true sportscaster, sports announcer. He should be announcing games. Al Michaels, even though he's not, he's caused some flack the last couple of years, he doesn't sound as excited in the booth. There's no doubt Al Michaels has has one of the best announcing voices we ever heard in the NFL. Whether or not you're a fan of Kirk Herbstreit or not, he sounds like an announcer. But some of his wordings, people get kind of on him for some of his criticisms during games and stuff like that, but no one questions whether or not they can listen to him. Tom Brady is borderline unlistenable. I mean, when it's just like, God, man, I do not like hearing him talk in the booth at all, to be honest with you. I'm not saying a lot because I am a diehard New England Patriots fan, and Tom Brady was my entire childhood, and I would ride or die for Tom Brady, man. Tom Brady made some extremely amazing moments for me as a kid. And even though if you hated New England and the Patriots, people respected Tom Brady still for what for going out there and doing what he did, winning seven championships. Even on Tampa, like even when he went to Tampa in 2020 through 2022, 2023. Obviously I'm not a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I was rooting for Tampa still. Like I love Tom Brady to death in terms of a player, of course. I don't actually love Tom Brady, but in terms of a player, and he made some extremely happy moments for me as a child, and not even as a child. I mean, my whole life really, and until I was 20 years old. Still does, of course. Even me being I'm going to be 22 years old soon. So, it's just hearing him in the booth is excruciating, to be honest with you. Yeah, it almost really is. A lot of people don't like hearing it. I think it's for a reason. He's there a long time, though. Fox is not going to let him lose. They're paying him like $500 million to announce in the booth. But I'm curious to see when that contract is over, whether or not Fox Sports resigns him or not, because he does not have a lot of good reviews. A lot of people don't like listening to him in the booth, whether or not that's because he doesn't sound good, or a lot of people are kind of biased because they don't like him because of his playing career. I think that's all up in the air, but I think the one for sure is he just does not sound good as an announcer. So I think a lot of people agree with that, even Patriots fans. So I'd be curious to see when his contract ends with Fox, to see whether they re-sign Tom Brady or whether or not he goes to pursue to be a head coach all of a sudden after his contract is done. Maybe he knows he's not going to re-sign with Fox. So I'd be curious to see what job aspirations he has, or if he just goes full-time with the Raiders at that point. We'll find out. Last question I have here today is why do you criticize teams like the Saints so hard? I understand I probably like them more than others, especially because I'm a fan. But you and everyone else just slams them like no tomorrow. I think this team could make a serious surprise run for a playoff push. Just wait and see. I criticize teams that I feel like every team has some you can criticize them for something. Every single team, but some more than others. And yeah, people are going to criticize the Saints, especially myself. The Saints are a terrible team. Some people are out there saying that they're going to be a lot more competitive, and they'll be competitive in games. Like they're not just some walkover team. They are still an NFL organization. They have some decent players. And a lot of people were saying, okay, Spencer Rattler could really break out to be something, and maybe he will. But the Saints are looking to suck. I think the ownership is looking to suck. They're still in cap hell. You go and pay Chase Young $1 gazillion when you're already cash strapped as it is. Team just makes really bad decisions. If it wasn't for Drew Brees, where would this organization be at? I mean, this organization since Drew Brees has just been a dumpster fire, to be completely honest with you. And I know you see me in my Patriots jersey. A lot of people say, well, ever since Tom Brady left, the Patriots have been a dumpster fire. Well, yeah, and they have. I mean, they have not been great. You know, they made the playoffs once without Tom Brady when they rocked Mac Jones's rookie year, but they haven't been great since. They picked number 3 overall. They picked number 4 overall last year. Yeah, they've had it kind of rough the last few years. There's no doubt about that. But I think the Saints have kind of had it a little worse, to be completely honest with you. Between the Derek Carr situation and being cash strapped, at least the Patriots had the most cap space in the league last year. They've had a decent amount of cap room and have decided to move off of some people. The Saints had held on to Dennis Allen for way too long. Derek Carr's contract, he just ended up retiring, of course. They just have a lot of really bad contracts. Guys still getting paid that haven't played for the team, haven't played for the Saints in years, that they're still paying $1 gazillion to. And the Saints just don't have a very good roster at all. They're going to end up making Chris Olave retire for one. They signed Alvin Kamara to a big extension this year, which I like, but Alvin Kamara's kind of getting older now. And do you really, with or without Alvin Kamara this year, your team is going to finish with like 4 wins. So why even do that to your team? You might as well go out and draft a running back at like the 5th or 6th round and see what you got. It's just decisions like that, the Chase Young decision. It's just a bunch of constant bad signings for the Saints. And the worst part is that even if they get a quarterback, this team is so cash-strapped in salary cap that they still have a while before they actually get some legitimate cap space if they go and stop making stupid signings every offseason. So I'm not trying to, I don't hate the Saints. I don't hate any organization, but the Saints are very bad at making decisions ever since Drew Brees left. And that's just, it is what it is. So, you know, we're going to have to see what happens with the Saints. The Saints are going to be terrible this year. The Saints are not going to make a playoff push this year. I'm not trying to be, you know, not trying to harp on your parade or anything, but Saints, I wouldn't bet my life the Saints don't make the playoffs this year. Like, actually, I would literally go and bet everyone I know, my family, everything. I would bet my life and everyone else that the Saints do not make the playoffs this year. There's no conceivable way this team makes the playoffs. Now, whether or not they finish better than 4 wins is up for debate. A lot of people have them finishing like 4-13, even worse than that. Some people have them with like 3 wins. If you want to have them finishing with 6 wins instead of 4, and you think they're going to be a little more competitive, that's fine. I can understand that. But in terms of making a playoff push, there's no way. They're not going to win their division at all. Between the Bucks and even the Falcons, I think the Panthers are better than New Orleans. Even though the Panthers, people are saying, okay, Bryce Young, it's over with the Panthers. It's not. It's week 1. You got to give teams a minute to break it in a little bit. The Panthers are better than New Orleans. The Saints are not good, and that's okay. I mean, whether or not they can compete next year or 2 years from now is completely up in the air. I'm not saying they'll never be competitive again, but in terms of the 2025 season, as of right now, the Saints are not a competitive football team. They, they were competitive against the Cardinals on Sunday. The Cardinals aren't a great team either. I think the Cardinals are going to fall apart. A lot of people talking about, will Kyler Murray be on the team in 2026 or not? Who the hell knows? They might just completely tear it down. We don't know, or just trade Kyler. That team's not great either. And the Saints still lost. It doesn't matter whether or not they were competitive. They still lost the game. But no one has this team is making the playoffs and being competitive. They just don't. They do not. The Saints will not be. I don't think the Saints will be competitive next year either. Now, the year after that could be absolutely different. They just had to nail their draft. Like, they could be competitive next year. They have a great draft, get a quarterback and stuff. They'll be good. Maybe make a couple. If they do make free agent signings, don't have it be 4 years, $100 million to some player who is not worth it, but it's just, maybe the free agency class isn't the best, or there's not a lot of players left out there, and you feel like you just have to give them a ton of money for them to come and play for you. Don't do that. Hit your draft. That's the thing the Saints haven't really done the last couple of years as well, is hit their draft that well. They've had some picks here, some picks there, but their drafting has not been great. So that's one thing that's kind of killed them. I think the Saints have avoided the rebuild. They just have seriously avoided going all in on the rebuild, and it's killing them. They just need to just tear it down and go all in on the rebuild, which is looks like that's what they could be doing this year, but it still doesn't feel like they're saying, okay, screw it, we're just going for it. The Titans went all in for a rebuild. Well, that's not necessarily true. They're paying Calvin Ridley a ton of money. Like, it's not necessarily you don't need to go out and not pay anyone to rebuild, but that's what the Titans even acknowledge they're not going to win. Saints need to go out there and just really tear it all down, which kind of seems like that's what they're doing now, at least. It's been way too long. I think this team could actually be competing now if they would have just done it 3 years ago. They're right after Drew Brees retired and just said, screw it. Let's go and tear this thing down. Because they haven't done anything since Drew Brees just retired. They finished with like 7 wins. So it hasn't. They've waited too long to rebuild. That's been the Saints' issue, and that's what's happening to them this year. That's why I know when they're not going to be competing this year because they waited too long. But the Saints may be able to compete in a few years, so we'll see about that. And that is it for today's Why Not Wednesday. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, if you guys have any questions you want answered right here on the Talk of the Town podcast, make sure to hit my socials. It'll be in the description below. I'll say it right now, at Talk of the Town _pod. Whether or not it's on TikTok, Instagram, does not matter. Fire in those DMs. I have a ton of them still left for you guys. You guys